Hey everyone. Wow, I never thought I'd be sitting here, talking about this. Honestly, my hands are still shaking a little just thinking about it all. You know how sometimes you think your life is on one track? Everything seems normal? Maybe not perfect, but stable. You have your routines, your person, your shared jokes, the little annoyances that become familiar comforts. That was me. That was us. Me and Sarah. 5 years married, 10 years together. We were that couple. The ones people looked at and thought, yeah, they've got it figured out. Solid. Dependable. Maybe a little boring sometimes, if I'm being honest, but boring felt safe. Boring felt like forever. Turns out, forever can shatter in an instant. And boring, well, I'd give anything to go back to boring now. It didn't start with a bang. It rarely does it? It was more like a creeping coldness. A subtle shift in the atmosphere of our home. Like the thermostat was slowly being turned down, degree by invisible degree, until one day you wake up shivering and you don't know exactly when the warmth left. Sarah, she started changing. At first, it was small things. Things you could easily explain away. She started working later. Big project at work, she'd say, waving a tired hand, dropping her briefcase by the door with a thud that echoed in the suddenly too quiet hallway. Okay, I thought. She's ambitious, dedicated. That's one of the things I loved about her. Her drive. Then it was her phone. Her phone, which used to lie face up on the coffee table, buzzing occasionally with messages from her mom or group chats with friends, suddenly became guarded. It was always face down, or in her pocket, or clutched in her hand. She started taking calls in the other room, shutting the door softly behind her. When I'd walk in unexpectedly, she'd end the call abruptly, a flicker of something. Surprise? Annoyance? Crossing her face before smoothing into a neutral smile. Just work, she'd murmur, or spam call. And I'd nod, because what else could I do? Accuse her based on what? A feeling? A hunch? I'd sound crazy, paranoid. But the feeling persisted. It grew, twisting in my gut like a poisonous vine. Date nights started getting canceled more often than not. Too tired, she'd say, already halfway under the duvet, back turned to me. Our conversations, which used to flow easily, became strained. Short answers. Long silences. The easy intimacy, the casual touches, the inside jokes, they evaporated. It felt like living with a polite roommate, someone who shared my space but not my life. The laughter lines around her eyes seemed fainter, replaced by a tension around her mouth I hadn't seen before. I tried talking to her. God, I tried. So many times. Sarah, is everything okay? You seem distant. I choose my words carefully, trying not to sound accusatory, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. And she'd look at me, sometimes with genuine confusion, sometimes with a flash of irritation. I'm fine, Alex. Just stressed. Work is insane right now. Or, don't be silly. Everything's the same. But it wasn't the same. It was fundamentally, terrifyingly different. And the fact that she couldn't, or wouldn't, see it, or acknowledge it, that scared me more than anything. It felt like gaslighting, even though I hated using that word. Was I imagining it? Was the pressure getting to me? Was I the problem? Self-doubt is a corrosive thing. It eats away at your certainty, makes you question your own reality. I started watching her more closely, analyzing every word, every sigh, every glance. It was exhausting. I felt like a detective in my own home, searching for clues to a crime I wasn't even sure had been committed. Little things started to add up. An unfamiliar scent on her clothes sometimes, not perfume, something else, musky, male. Receipts for lunches or coffees I knew weren't work-related, crumpled at the bottom of her bag. Her sudden interest in joining a gym across town, despite us having a perfectly good one in our building. Each incident on its own was nothing. Plausible deniability. But together they painted a picture I didn't want to see. The breaking point, the moment the desperate need to know outweighed the fear of what I might find, came after a particular Friday night. She was supposed to be working late again. Said she'd grabbed dinner near the office. I was home, trying to lose myself in a movie, but the silence was deafening. Around 11 p.m., I got a text. Just leaving now. Exhausted. Straight to bed XX. Okay. But then, maybe half an hour later, scrolling mindlessly through social media, a friend tagged Sarah in a photo. It was a group shot, taken at a trendy downtown bar. Not near her office. Not a work colleague in sight. And Sarah, she was laughing. Head thrown back, a wide, genuine smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. standing very close to a guy I didn't recognize. His arm was casually draped around her shoulder. My blood ran cold, then hot. A wave of nausea washed over me. It wasn't the photo itself, necessarily. It could have been innocent. But it was the lie. The casual, deliberate deception. Why lie about where she was? Why lie about being exhausted and heading straight home? The XX at the end of her text suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. The image of that photo burned into my brain. The laughter. His arm. Her lie. By morning, the dull ache of suspicion had crystallized into a sharp, painful certainty. I couldn't live like this anymore. The not knowing, the guessing, the self-doubt, it was destroying me. I needed answers. Real answers. Not the evasions and half-truths I was getting from her. And that's when the thought, the ugly, desperate thought I'd been pushing away, solidified. A private investigator. It felt so dramatic. So cliché. Something out of a cheap novel. Hiring someone to spy on my own wife? It felt like a betrayal in itself. A violation of trust. But what trust was left to violate? Wasn't she the one who had already broken it? Piece by agonizing piece? The secrecy was the poison, and I needed the antidote, no matter how bitter it tasted. Making the call was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My voice shook as I explained the situation to the calm, professional voice on the other end. I felt ashamed, embarrassed, like I was admitting some fundamental failure as a husband, as a man. But the need to know was stronger. I gave him her details, her schedule, the car she drove, paid the retainer fee, the number making my stomach clench. And then, I waited. The first few days after hiring the PI were surreal. I went through the motions of life, work, even conversations with Sarah, but it felt like watching myself from a distance. Every interaction was tainted by the secret I was keeping, by the knowledge that someone else was watching her too. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leaped into my throat. Was it him? What had he found? I oscillated wildly between hoping he'd find absolutely nothing, proving my suspicions wrong, making me feel like the world's biggest idiot but leaving my marriage intact, and hoping he'd find concrete proof, something undeniable, just to validate the gnawing anxiety that was consuming me, to prove I wasn't crazy. The investigator, let's call him Davis, was discreet. He sent brief, factual updates via encrypted email. Subject observed leaving office at 5:17 p.m. Proceeded to address X. Subject met with unidentified male at Cafe Y. Duration, 1 hour 15 minutes. The details were mundane, clinical, but each one landed like a tiny hammer blow against the fragile facade of our life. Unidentified male. Where was this cafe? Why wasn't she telling me about these meetings? Then came the first photo attachment. It was grainy, taken from a distance. Sarah, sitting across from a man at an outdoor table. I couldn't make out his face clearly, but he looked relaxed, confident. He was leaning forward, listening intently as Sarah spoke, her expression animated. There was an ease between them, a connection that struck me like a physical blow. It was the connection we used to have. Seeing it laid bare, captured by a stranger I was paying, it felt sordid, dirty. But I couldn't look away. I zoomed in, trying to decipher the man's features, trying to understand what I was seeing. Was this friendship? Business? Or something else? Davis's email simply stated the facts. Date, time, location. No interpretation. No judgment. That was my job. And it was tearing me apart. What was happening? What had my life become? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. And the first report from the man I hired was just the beginning of the plunge. I braced myself, waiting for the next update, a cold dread settling deep in my bones. What else was he going to find? The days following that first photo bled into a week, then two. Life took on a bizarre, split quality. There was the surface level, work deadlines, grocery shopping, polite, strained dinners with Sarah where the silence screamed louder than any argument could have. And then there was the subterranean level, the constant checking of my secure email, the knot of anxiety tightening with every ping, the obsessive analysis of Davis's reports. He was thorough, meticulous. He documented her movements with chilling precision. The gym visits across town became a regular occurrence. Lunches with the unidentified male happened too, sometimes 3 times a week. Always at different, slightly out-of-the-way places. Never near her office. Never mentioned to me. I started losing weight. Sleep was a luxury I could rarely afford, my mind racing, replaying conversations, analyzing her expressions, trying to reconcile the woman lying beside me, when she wasn't too tired and sleeping in the guest room. With the person documented in Davis's reports, the paranoia intensified. Was she lying about everything? Did she ever love me? Was our whole life a sham? I felt like I was losing my grip, consumed by suspicion and the corrosive acid of betrayal. I considered confronting her countless times. I'd rehearse speeches in my head, standing in the shower, driving to work. Sometimes angry, accusatory. Sometimes pleading, heartbroken. But I always held back. Why? Partly because I was terrified of the answer. Partly because Davis had cautioned me against it. Tipping her off could make her more careful, drive the behavior further underground. And partly because a darker thought had begun to take root. If she was doing what I suspected she was doing, a simple confrontation felt insufficient. The pain she was inflicting, the calculated deceit, it demanded more than just tears and apologies. It demanded consequences. Davis's reports became more detailed. He'd managed to get closer, capture clearer images. The unidentified male now had a face. He wasn't anyone I knew. Thank God for that small mercy. He looked generic, I suppose. Mid-40s, reasonably well-dressed, the kind of guy you wouldn't look twice at on the street. But the way Sarah looked at him in those photos, the hand lingering on his arm, the shared laughter, the intimate lean-in across the table, there was no mistaking the context. This wasn't business. This wasn't just friendship. The updates kept coming. Late afternoon, meetings that ended with them walking separately to their cars, parked blocks apart. A weekend afternoon where Sarah had claimed to be visiting her sister, but Davis tracked her to a boutique hotel on the outskirts of the city. She checked in alone. He waited. An hour later, the man from the photos arrived, looking around cautiously before slipping inside. Davis didn't stay to see when they left. He didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. Each report felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I was numb, functioning on autopilot. The love I felt for Sarah was still there, buried under layers of hurt and anger, but it was suffocating. It felt tangled up with pity and contempt. How could she do this? To us? To me? After everything we'd built? Then came the email that changed everything. The subject line was simple: final report and supporting materials. My heart hammered against my ribs. I waited until Sarah was asleep, or pretending to be, before opening it on my laptop, huddled in the dark living room. Davis had attached a detailed summary, timelines, locations, cross-reference dates with Sarah's supposed whereabouts according to what I'd told him she'd told me. The discrepancies were stark, brutal. But it was the supporting materials folder that made my world stop. It contained high-resolution photos. Clearer shots from the cafes, yes. But also photos from outside that hotel. Him arriving. Them leaving, hours later, separately, trying to look casual. But the guilt and the illicit thrill seemed to hang in the air around them, even in a still photograph. There were snippets of audio recordings Davis had managed to capture from a nearby table at one of their lunch meetings. The quality wasn't perfect, background noise interfering, but I could hear her voice, her laugh. And then, I heard her talking about me. He's just so predictable, you know? Her voice, laced with something I couldn't quite place. Boredom? Exasperation? It's comfortable, I guess, but... A pause. Then the other guy's voice, low, indistinct. Then Sarah again. No, he has no idea. He trusts me completely. It's almost sad. Sad. That word hit me like a physical blow. Not anger, not frustration. Sad. My trust in her, the foundation of our entire relationship, was something she pitted. Something she maybe even scorned. The sheer coldness of it, the casual cruelty, it was worse than the infidelity itself. The affair was a betrayal of our vows, but this felt like a betrayal of my very being. She didn't just cheat on me. She pitted me for being the loyal, trusting husband she could so easily deceive. And then, the final file. A short video clip. Grainy, likely taken with a hidden camera from Davis's car, parked across the street from one of their lunch spots. It showed them saying goodbye, standing close. He said something that made her laugh. Then he leaned in and kissed her. Not a peck on the cheek. A real kiss. Lingering. Possessive. And Sarah, she kissed him back. Willingly. Eagerly. Before pulling away, glancing around, and walking quickly to her car. I watched it once. Twice. A third time. My vision blurred. I felt nothing. Just a vast, icy emptiness where my heart used to be. The shock was so profound it bypassed anger, bypassed grief, and went straight to a chilling clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a cry for help. This was a conscious, calculated choice. She had chosen this other life, this other man, over me, over us. And she felt nothing but pity for the man she was leaving behind in the dark. The numbness eventually gave way to a slow-burning rage. Not the explosive kind, but a deep, cold fury. The kind that settles in your bones and changes you. The pity, that's what I couldn't get past. She thought my trust was sad? She thought my loyalty was pathetic? Okay, fine. She wanted unpredictable? She wanted something other than comfortable? She was about to get it. My initial thoughts of confrontation evaporated. What was the point? To hear more lies? More justifications? To see fake tears? No. The evidence was absolute. Undeniable. My course of action became clear, not born from impulsive anger, but from a place of deep, profound hurt and a sudden, desperate need to reclaim my dignity. She thought I was clueless? She pitied my blindness? Well, the blind man was about to open his eyes, and she wasn't going to like what he saw. I spent the next few days meticulously planning. I contacted a lawyer, the best divorce lawyer I could find. I started quietly separating our finances, moving my salary into a new account, gathering statements, property deeds, investment records. I acted completely normal around Sarah, perhaps even a little warmer than usual. Let her think everything was fine. Let her luxuriate in her sad little deception. Let her believe she was getting away with it. The coldness inside me was frightening, but also empowering. The hurt was still there, a gaping wound, but it was now overlaid with a sense of purpose. This wasn't just about ending the marriage anymore. It was about ensuring she understood the gravity of her actions. It was about ensuring that the predictable, comfortable, sad husband she underestimated so thoroughly was the one who ultimately held the cards. I had the report, the photos, the audio, the video, a neat, damning package compiled by Davis, sitting on an encrypted hard drive. I looked at Sarah across the dinner table, listening to her talk about another stressful day at work, a fake smile plastered on her face, and I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm was coming. She had created this hurricane with her lies and betrayal, and now she was standing directly in its path, completely oblivious. And I was the one holding the trigger. The wait was almost over. The reckoning was about to begin. What would happen when the truth finally came out? I didn't know exactly how it would play out, but I knew one thing for sure. It wouldn't be boring. And it definitely wouldn't be sad, not for me, anyway. The calm before the storm lasted precisely 4 more days. For days of playing the part of the oblivious, trusting husband. For days of polite conversation, shared meals, and sleeping in separate rooms under the guise of her needing space due to work stress, a reason I now knew was utter bullshit. Each charade, each lie she told, solidified my resolve. The cold fury inside me didn't dissipate. It coalesced, sharpened into a diamond-hard point of certainty. She thought this was a game she was winning? Fine. Let's play the final round. I chose a Sunday morning. It felt fitting. Sundays were usually our day. Lazy breakfasts, reading the paper, maybe a walk in the park. A symbol of the domestic tranquility she had systematically dismantled. She came downstairs late, yawning, dressed in her favorite comfy sweats, looking for all the world like the woman I had loved for a decade. For a fleeting, treacherous second, my heart ached with the ghost of that love. Then I remembered the audio clip. It's almost sad. The ache vanished, replaced by ice. Morning, she said, heading for the coffee machine. Sleep okay? Like a log, I replied, my voice even. Too even, perhaps. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me. Davis's final report, the entire sickening compilation, was ready. She poured her coffee, added her usual splash of milk. Big plans today? She asked casually, turning around, leaning against the counter. Actually, yeah, I said, meeting her eyes. I thought we could finally have that talk. The one we keep putting off. A flicker of apprehension crossed her face, quickly masked. Oh, about what? About us, Sarah, I said, keeping my voice low, controlled. About why you've been so distant. Why you've been working so late. Why you need so much space, Dot. She sighed dramatically, setting her mug down. Alex, not this again. I told you, work has been crazy. Stop, I interrupted. Not loudly, but with a firmness that made her blink. Just stop lying. The air crackled. Her eyes widened slightly. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the late nights that weren't at the office, I said, leaning forward slightly. I'm talking about the lunches at cafes across town. I'm talking about the gym I didn't know you joined. I'm talking about the weekend trips you didn't take to your sisters. Each sentence landed like a measured blow. Her face paled. She swallowed hard. I I don't know what you mean. You're not making any sense. Denial. Predictable. Aren't I? I clicked the mouse, turning the laptop screen towards her. The first photo appeared, her and him, at that outdoor cafe, laughing. Her breath hitched. What? Where did you get that? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Does it matter? I clicked again. Another photo. The hotel entrance. Click. Him arriving. Click. Them leaving. Hours later. Click. The kiss. The damning video clip started playing, silent, undeniable. She stared, frozen, her coffee forgotten. The color drained completely from her face, leaving it a sickly gray. Her eyes darted from the screen to my face, searching for, what? An explanation? An escape? There was none. I know, Sarah, I said quietly, the ice in my voice absolute. I know everything. The dam broke. She sank onto a kitchen stool, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Sobs racked her body, real, ugly sobs of guilt and terror. Part of me, the part that still remembered loving her, felt a pang of something akin to pity. But it was drowned out by the memory of her voice on that recording. Sad. How she choked out between sobs. How did you find out? I hired someone, I said flatly. When you wouldn't talk to me, when the lies kept piling up. I needed the truth. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief and a fresh wave of horror. You spied on me? The accusation was ludicrous, considering the circumstances, but it was her only defense. You gave me no choice, I retorted, the cold fury flaring. You built a fortress of lies around yourself, Sarah. I just found a way to see over the walls. And the view? It isn't pretty. I paused, letting the weight of it sink in. Tell me about him. What followed was messy. Tears, denials morphing into reluctant confessions, justifications. He was a consultant her company hired. They connected. It just happened. She felt, unseen at home. The irony was blinding. She never meant to hurt me. The usual script. But the words rang hollow, bouncing off the shield of evidence I possessed. The pity husband wasn't buying it. You didn't mean to hurt me? I echoed, my voice dangerously low. You stood there, day after day, lying to my face. You talked about me behind my back, pitying my trust in you while you were betraying it in the worst possible way. You think that doesn't hurt? She flinched, tears streaming down her face. Alex, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Mistake. I almost laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is taking a wrong turn. This was a campaign, Sarah. A calculated deception that went on for months. You didn't just stumble into this. You chose it. Every single day. I stood up, the movement abrupt, making her jump. I've spoken to a lawyer, Sarah. Her eyes widened in panic. Lawyer? Alex, no, please. We can fix this. I'll end it with him, right now. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I stared at her, truly seeing the stranger she had become. The desperation in her eyes wasn't for me. Not really. It was the fear of consequences. The fear of losing the comfortable life she had taken for granted while seeking excitement elsewhere. There's nothing left to fix. You burned it all down. You think sorry rebuilds a house after its ashes. I walked over to the counter, picked up a thick envelope I'd placed there earlier. These are divorce papers. My lawyer drew them up. They're quite generous, all things considered. More generous than you deserve. I dropped the envelope onto the counter beside her coffee mug. I suggest you get your own lawyer and look them over. She just stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. Alex, please don't do this. Her voice was pleading, broken. It's already done, I said, my voice final. I looked around the kitchen, the heart of the home we had built together, now feeling alien and cold. I'll be moving out today. I've already arranged movers for my personal things later this week. You can stay here for now, until we figure out the settlement. I turned to leave the room. Her sob turned into a wail. Where will you go? I stopped at the doorway, but didn't turn back. Somewhere I'm not pitted, I said softly, but the words carried the weight of everything I'd discovered. Somewhere I can start again. Somewhere the air isn't thick with lies. Walking out of that house, leaving her crying amidst the wreckage of our marriage, wasn't triumphant. It hurt like hell. A deep, eviscerating pain. But underneath the pain, there was something else. Relief. Clarity. A sense of reclaiming myself. The sad, Predictable husband had finally done something unpredictable. He had chosen himself. The aftermath was hard. Divorces are never easy. There were lawyers, paperwork, awkward exchanges about dividing assets. Sarah tried reaching out, apologies mixed with anger, pleas mixed with bitterness. I maintained minimal contact, communicating mostly through lawyers. Seeing her face, hearing her voice, it just reopened the wounds. The trust was gone, obliterated. And without trust, what was left? Months have passed now. The divorce is finalized. I have my own place, smaller, simpler, but it's mine. The healing process is slow, non-linear. Some days are okay. Some days, the phantom limb of the life I lost aches profoundly. But the chilling emptiness I felt when I saw that report has slowly, gradually, begun to recede, replaced by, well, by life. Work, friends, rediscovering hobbies I'd let slide. Do I feel satisfaction? Not in a vengeful way. There's no joy in the destruction of something you once cherished. But there is a quiet satisfaction in knowing I stood up for myself. In knowing I refused to be the sad, clueless husband. In knowing that I faced the ugliest truth imaginable and survived it. I took back control of my narrative. Sarah? From what I hear through mutual acquaintances, things didn't work out with the other guy. Apparently, the thrill faded once the secrecy was gone. Apparently, he wasn't keen on stepping into the fallout of a messy divorce he helped create. There's a certain grim irony in that, I suppose. She threw away a decade of history for a fantasy, and the fantasy dissolved under the harsh light of reality. She has to live with the consequences of her choices, just like I have to live with the scars of mine. So, that's the story. Hiring that detective, it destroyed my marriage, but it also saved me from living a lie. The report they gave me left me stunned, shattered, enraged. But ultimately, it set me free. It forced me to confront a painful reality I might have otherwise ignored for years, buried under denial and misplaced hope. Trust, once broken so fundamentally, is almost impossible to rebuild. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even when it feels like tearing yourself in two. It's about choosing your own peace, your own dignity, over a comforting illusion. And that's not sad at all. It's survival. It's the first step towards finding something real again. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.